joined now by Andrew Hopkins, TRT World's diplomatic correspondent and the presenter of the documentary Until We Take Control. And Ceren Kenar is with us as well. She was a consultant on the film. Good to have you both here in studio. It's hard to believe it's been 3 years. Before we look at the film and what it uncovers, Ceren, take us back briefly to that night 3 years ago. What was it like for you?
Well, I was doing my job on the night of the coup. I was a journalist with a Turkish TV station back then. I was at the TV station, and then we were informed that there was something extraordinary going on. At first, it was very difficult to believe, but we were told that there is a coup going on. So it was quite dangerous for journalists that night because the putschists raided TRT and some other TV stations. So we were also stranded in the TV station. So it was quite traumatic for everyone in Turkey because I mean, there had been incidents like terror incidents in Turkey, but nothing was like this. I mean, the Turkish parliament was bombed by our own F-16 jets, and it was a huge trauma for the whole nation.
Yeah, and there was something that you had done in the months afterwards where you collected a lot of the information and evidence showing the links to the Feto movement, which was fascinating and very helpful, something I sent to a lot of people as well, as people tried to piece together what happened, why it happened, and who exactly was behind it. And as we try to answer that over the years, Andrew, you're quite similar to me as an outsider coming into this and learning more and more about the movement and the politics at play and the dynamics. What was it like for you to make this documentary, Andrew?
Well, I think it's very interesting because with this particular documentary, a lot of what has happened since the failed coup attempt happened has been used really for political purposes by one side or another. But once you get past that sort of information, that sort of propaganda flow, there's a lot of very strong circumstantial evidence against some of the main suspects who are involved in the coup attempt on that particular night. And in this documentary, we've brought together a lot of the information, a lot of the footage that is out there in the public domain in Turkey, but is not necessarily so freely available out there in the English language media around the world. So we have CCTV footage of people who have known links to Fethullah Gulen, who are well known to have those links in Turkey, who were seen inside the airbase from where the whole coup attempt was managed. They're walking around, they are university professors, they are business executives. They're just walking around talking to military officers as though they're friends. They're tapping them on the shoulder. There's no sort of hierarchy involved here. These people are unsupervised. And we also look at how these people, they were arrested the morning after trying to escape from the airbase where this coup was taking place. And they all gave the same alibi. They all said they were looking for land to buy. On the very same night when a coup was happening, everybody knew it was a coup that was going on. People were scared. They were taking money out of ATMs. They were stockpiling food. But yet these guys were out there in a field looking for land to buy. It was a very strange situation that was going on.
Yeah. Ceren, one of the things that angers the Turkish state so much is that they want to see Fethullah Gulen here on Turkish soil standing trial for the coup attempt. The United States has so far not budged. There's the extradition attempt from Turkey. Now, when we look at this movement, a lot of people around the world, whether in Africa, whether in the United States, whether in Central Asia, when they are told that this movement was behind a failed coup attempt in Turkey, they say, well, I mean, they built schools, they built hospitals. You can't tell me those guys are behind it. Help me understand that dynamic to the organization and why it's so alien for people who see how the movement operates outside of Turkey's borders to believe that there's a nefarious network within this country trying to overthrow a government.
Well, it's normal that this whole organization is quite difficult to understand for non-Turkish people. I mean, it was very difficult for Turkish people to understand it as well. So we're talking about an extremely complex, an extremely well-structured, as well as insidious criminal network. So in the documentary, we actually show how this organization, this movement has grown. It is kind of an intra-hostile intelligence. It has a lot of people infiltrated the Turkish state, but also a lot of network charity activities. But this is one and same organization. It has double faces, triple faces. It has have so many faces. It presents itself as a movement that promotes interfaith dialogue, education, but mainly this is the front of the organization. Through this propaganda, through these messages, the organization garners human resources as well as money to gain leverage over, for example, U.S. senators, for example, British parliamentarians. So here we're talking about a very complex organization that has tentacles all around the globe. And I know it's quite difficult for anyone to understand how this organization infiltrated Turkey, because it's a cult, it's an interesting cult, it's a sinister cult, it's very secretive, but it is dangerous. And this danger mainly stems from the hypocrisy of this organization. It presents itself as this peace movement, but on the background, there's a very, very ugly story.
Right. Andrew, something that we both witnessed was a briefing from some very high up people showing us how the movement works in Konya. That was the briefing that we got. What was interesting for me is that there was some extraordinary evidence put on display in Ankara when we were in that room. Was that, in a way, a kind of microcosm where you just had one city showing the depth and breadth of the infiltration in terms of police and judges and businessmen and so on? What I saw and what we saw as you continued your journey making this documentary, was that a microcosm of how they've tended to operate across the country?
Yes, I think it was. I think from what we heard in that particular briefing, that this organisation, it's very difficult for people to understand unless you get the full background of how this organisation has been operating for several decades in Turkey, how it was able to sort of manipulate the political situation over the past few decades, from when Turkey was in name at least, a very secular country where the military were basically in control, where the government was a very secular organization, where the state had very secular individuals. And it's very interesting to see how that was built up over the years and how that organization came to be in control, if you like, in Konya, of so many different aspects of business, of education, of the police, of the judiciary in this particular city. In the documentary, we show various charts which look like a sort of family tree, if you like, which show you how this organization operates. Even at the very top, you have a man who is in charge of the whole of Turkey for this organization. He's known as an imam. He's not necessarily a religious leader for the organization, but it denotes some kind of seniority within the organization. But you'll have him at the top, you'll have one in charge of each of the 7 provinces, you'll have one in charge of each 81 cities in Turkey, and then that divides up into the areas of business, the judiciary, the military, all these different areas of society where you have the same structure. And this is how the organization is able to build up its power and influence.
Right. Massive attempt to get rid of Feto from within Turkey, from being in the state institutions over the past 3 years. So tens of thousands of people fired, thousands of people arrested, people standing trial and being convicted in the military and elsewhere. Yet we still saw very recently 122 people in Izmir and Konya being arrested for being members of the organization. That's 3 years on. What does that suggest to us, Ceren, that this is far from over?
I mean, according to Turkish government officials, the institution has infiltrated to the core of each and every Turkish state institution. And this is such a complex network, like nobody, we often joke in Turkey, like nobody is a Gülenist, even Fethullah Gülen is a Gülenist, because they never, the members of this organization were never transparent about their allegiance with this cult movement, with Feto. So this complicates things for both the Turkish state and for many innocent people as well. So in that sense, this investigation is still going on in Turkey. I personally believe that the Feto network in Turkey has damaged severely. And we have to keep in mind that there is a cross-ideological attitude towards the organization among Turkish people. Even the government supporters, of course, they're quite hostile to the movement. They don't, due to what happened, but also, though Turkey is a very polarized country, the opposition sympathizers also hate the movement. So there's a cross-ideology consensus that this organization should be eliminated from the Turkish state. So I think that the organization has been exposed to a lot of damage in Turkey. However, it is still intact abroad.
Right.
It still has a network abroad. It still owns charter schools. It still has some lobbying power in the United States, in UK. There's still people, business people who are funding this organization. They're living abroad, and the Turkish state is quite bitter about all these extradition cases, with especially the Western countries.
Right. Okay, Ceren and Andrew, good to chat to you both.
Thank you.